Why think that there are mental properties in addition to physical properties? So this should be slide 5. Now, first I want to say that all that I'm saying in this section is that mental properties are not physical properties, that they're not identical. The few examples I'm going to give you is not to say that mental properties are not had by physical substances. And so for the next couple of slides, if you believe that you just are your brain and your brain has mental properties, that's perfectly consistent with the next couple of slides. So an objection wouldn't be, yeah, but the brain can have those properties. At this point, I'm not saying that the brain can't have them. I'm just saying that there's a difference between mental properties and physical properties. So what we'll do is we'll look at some differences between them, and then if A is, if one is not identical to the other, if something's true of a property that's true of mental properties that's not true of physical properties, then that'll be enough to show that mental properties are not physical properties. Because if they're identical, then they would have all of the same things would be true about them. If there's one thing that's not true, that's true of one and not true of the other, then that's enough to show that they're not identical. So I'm going to give you 8 examples. Again, only one of them has to work. I think that they all work, but if you don't agree with all of them, that's fine. If at least one of them is different about mental properties than is about physical properties, and that's enough to show that they are not identical. So first, there is no what it is like to physical properties. These are 5 features that are foreign to physical properties. There's no what it is like to be a physical property. So there's not what it is like to be a thunderstorm, for example, or what it is like for a thunderbolt to move across the sky or something like that. There's not a what it is like to that, but there is a what it is like to think about chocolate or to think about Santa Claus or whatever. There's a what it is like to have those conscious mental properties. Mental properties are internal, immediate, and private. So if I'm thinking about a tree, I just immediately am thinking about that. I'm immediately aware that I'm thinking about it, and it's private to me. It's not something that you see. You can't look at me and see what mental properties I'm having. Even if you had equipment or whatever, you wouldn't be able to know what I'm thinking unless I tell you. It's immediate to me, and so I just kind of immediately am thinking about that. That's not true of physical properties. That it's not private to any individual. Also, mental properties can be qualitative, so you can have a vague idea or you can have a pleasurable thought, but you can't have a pleasurable chemical reaction. It's just not true of physical properties that you can have these sort of qualitative aspects to it. You can have quantitative, so you can have a certain amount of density, but you can't have like pleasurable density or something like that. Also intentionality. So mental properties can have intentions, can intend to do things, whereas chemical reactions, for example, don't intend to do anything. They just are following physical laws, and so they don't have intentionality. And finally, mental properties are had only by subjects. So only persons can have mental properties. Rocks and streams and thunderstorms don't have mental properties, but only subjects do. And so that's not true of physical properties. I'll give you 3 more on the next slide. So there's no sense data about conscious states. So if I'm thinking about work, that doesn't smell like anything. There's no smell to that, but my brain smells. It has a smell. There's no color to worrying about a hurricane, but there is a color to my brain. It's mostly gray. And so there's no sense data about my conscious states, but there are sense data about my brain states. My brain states can't have fictional objects. So I can be thinking about Santa Claus, but chemical reactions, they can only interact with things that are real. They can't interact with things that are fictional. But my conscious states can have fictional objects, whereas my brain, physical objects, physical substances can't have non-fiction or fictional objects. Also, introspection is necessary for conscious states, so I have to reflect on my thinking to know what I'm thinking. Whereas I can just read or measure physical properties or physical states. It doesn't require that the person be introspective. It could be, I could be unconscious and you could, through various means, measure what's going on in my brain, but you wouldn't know like what I'm dreaming about unless I tell you, for example. So hopefully that's enough to show that there are differences between physical properties and mental properties. And that would entail property dualism, that there are, two different types or two different categories of properties. Thank you for listening. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. Please also look at the show notes in order to find a link to our group so that you can join our next discussion. I look forward to chatting with you.